Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to Vicious Whispers, episode 15. Today we'll be listening to chapter 8 of Brightside, chugging right along. It's a long one, 40 minutes. Today, actually, I just got done listening to it while standing halfway in the pool. The pool is 57 degrees, so it's pretty fucking cold. But I only went up to my waist. That way I could listen to the story, think about it. If I had gone all the way under, I know I would have been freezing my balls off. Well, I would have been freezing a lot more. It would have been a lot harder to concentrate if I had done that. So, yeah, I just took it a little bit easy. I went halfway, listened to the whole thing. Some cool stuff I want to talk about afterwards. But first, I did have a very cool message this week about Brightside. My acupuncturist receptionist, I'd given her a copy of Brightside, I don't know, a couple months ago. And I was talking to her on the phone about something. She's like, oh my gosh, she's like, I'm so embarrassed to tell you this. She's like, but I'm not much of a reader. I never read books really. And I'm kind of messy and I had thrown it in the back of my car. She said, but I just found it last night and I just kept reading and reading. I'm like 100 pages in. I just can't stop. I love it and blah, blah, blah. So I told her, I was like, that's honestly one of the coolest messages I get is from people that never read that really like it. Like people read a lot of books. Like your book is like, okay, that's cool. But if they never read, but they manage to get it all the way through your book, and that's pretty cool. And that's happened with several of my friends. Maybe it's because I just have a lot of friends that just don't read. I don't know. But anyhow, she likes Brightside so far. Although she was a little bit disappointed by the dog scene. She actually said, she's like, I don't know if you had to kill the dog though. I was like, yes, I had to kill the dog. And I was like, well, which dog are you talking about? There might be more than one that dies. I don't know. I think today's chapter we'll hear about a dog, but we'll talk about that shit after we listen to it. What else has been going on? This week I've been, still chugging along on my Dirty 30. That's what I'm thinking of. I don't know if that will be the actual name. Probably not. Who knows how many stories are actually going to make the final cut for the collection. But right now I have completed 26 and now I'm working on the final 4. Made some really good progress this week with taking out the trash and Last Will and Testament. Those are just about done. I probably need like one more night on those, one more day, and I'll finish those 2 up. And then a spirit story. Finally got a name for that called In the Cards, or that's the working title. That's a tarot card story. And then I'll do it's either going to be No One Cares or No One Loves You. Or No One Will Love You. Something nice and upbeat like that. That one's going to get a little gruesome. But that's a short one, so that'll be quick too. So my goal was to have all these stories done by the end of the year, and it looks like I'm going to do it. So, yeah, I'm excited about that. And they're all on the short side, but I like what I've done with them. Or how they're developing. With, which one was it? I had a thought. Oh, I did look at the total. The total word count isn't nearly as high as I wanted. So far, it's only 56,000 out of the original 70,000 of those previously written stories. So I cut 20% of the words down, which is quite a bit from having something that I had thought before was completely ready to go. Going back through them all, cut 20% overall. That's the average. But I think by the time I have these other 4 stories, they'll bring up to like 60,000, and then I'll probably package the 5 stories from Somber Stroll in with these, so I can have a full-length book. I wouldn't want to put out anything shorter than like 70,000 words, but doing it this way, it should probably be like 75 to 80, and then who knows, I'll probably have a couple other stories that I'll write soon. There was one that did not make it. Stuffed was one of the new ones that I kind of wanted to work on. I was starting to develop it a little bit, but it's really similar to my Last Will and Testament. So I was like, I'll save it for another time. My Last Will and Testament is kind of interesting. That one is, well, we'll see. It's kind of, I don't think we're actually going to do it, but I'm saying that's my real Last Will and Testament. And so it gets pretty interesting, but yeah, write in about what you want done with your body after you die. I don't know. I didn't have a will. My wife and I keep talking about us needing one. So I'm going to go over with her what I want done to my body after I die. And then maybe we'll come up with something together that we can agree on. But anyhow, no matter what, I think this story is pretty much done. Last will and testament. And then I'll finish up those other ones this week. Yeah, so that will be cool because then I could jump back into Brightside. Well, beyond Brightside. And finalize packaging Try Not to Die in Brightside. And hopefully the animation for that will be done as well. The artist, the illustrator who's been working on that, got an awesome job with a big time animation company. So now he's working on this on the side, and so it's going to take it a little bit longer. But he's still into it, and we're still moving. So we'll have that 3-minute clip out hopefully by the end of January at the latest. But again, there's no rush. That's probably the earliest I'll have the advanced copies of Try Not to Die on Brightside 2. I still don't have the cover. But once I get all those things done, I'll be pretty excited, and I'll be writing Beyond Brightside, finishing that book up. Yes, always something going on. What else is happening? Not too much. Preparing for a little trip. Having a very small Christmas this year. Not doing much. And then the day after New Year's, I never do anything for New Year's Eve. I used to always hate that fucking going out and partying. I was always a bah humbug kind of guy. And don't like crowds, so that's a big part of it. So this year will be very quiet. And then on the 1st, we're flying up to Oregon. We're going to go to Portland, Oregon. And then stay in Mount Hood and hopefully learn to do some snowboarding or skiing or something. And hopefully I will not hurt myself or embarrass myself too much. But I'll be learning with my kids, and so it should be fun. So we got that planned, and hopefully my wife wants to go train and the kids want to go train. So hopefully at least one or two of those days we'll go up to Portland 10th Planet and get to train up there. My shoulder's been feeling almost okay. I'm supposed to be off for 8 weeks, and so in another week or two I think I should be ready to go, and my back's feeling good. So we'll see what happens. I'll get to go embarrass myself. It sucks having to come back after being out for so long. Man, not only will my cardio suck, but my skill levels suck. But it's all good. Doesn't matter if you win or lose, supposedly. That's what they tell me. That's what I tell my kids. I don't always believe it, but I'm like, yeah, man, it's just good for you. It's okay to lose. My daddy does it all the time. Boo. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on with me. What I'm really hoping is I will have these stories finished up before the plane trip to Oregon. As I was like, either I could finish them there, but I'd like to have that all about Brightside. I think that's definitely going to help with things. I'm going to be more in a mountain setting, like Brightside setting, and it'll just be cool to start the new year with the new book. And put these short stories to the side. So I'm really going to rush to finish these up, and yeah, I think I'm going to get there. But for now, let's go ahead and jump into chapter 8. Let's listen to it, come back, and discuss a couple things. Learn some new exciting facts about me. Ooh, this is going to be a good one. All right, guys, hope you enjoy it. Here is chapter 8.
Chapter 8. On day 61, the sun was out, and it was kind of warm, so I asked Danny if he'd like to go fishing. He started jumping up and down, clapping his hand against the fist that held the faded blue pencil. I took that as a yes. We cut a small hole in the ice. The pond didn't have any fish, but I kept it to myself. We just sat quietly on the bank, Danny's mind as calm as Michelle's on the pills and whiskey. I guess that's the other reason I liked hanging out with Danny. The silence. But 2 days later, Danny became the loudest thing in Brightside. He ran up to me on the street and nearly knocked me over. "I need a drawing." I hated to spoil his fun, but he couldn't hold still. "Oh, okay, Danny. Just calm down." "No, I need it now. I have to go to work." Please, you gotta." "What's going on?" "My sister, she's coming." The next day, Rachel's desk was no longer empty. Danny's sister Sarah sat there, everything neat and organized. Nothing personal to distinguish her workspace from anyone else's, except one of my drawings Danny wanted her to have. Rachel had been the opposite. Papers scattered, pens everywhere, pictures of her father, mother, dog, and cat spread along the edge, a proud collage of her past. I was stupid to date Rachel. First time I saw where I was going to be sitting, I should have told Carlos I needed a new desk. I should have said I needed somewhere I could be by myself, somewhere I couldn't hurt anyone. My whole life's been one big should've. Should have known better, should have listened, should have paid attention, should have stopped worrying about everyone, should have realized I'm only as dumb as I let myself be. Sarah dialed another number. Some lady in Kentucky about an island getaway. She followed the script but made it her own, telling each person how she'd always dreamed of living by the ocean. It sounded believable, but her thoughts told me she didn't want to be anywhere but Brightside. It was creepy. I mean, there were some who believed Brightside wasn't so bad. People like Sharon and her puppet Vanessa, women so positive it made you sick. But Sarah was the first I'd heard of that really wanted to be here. She turned herself in on purpose, demanded to be reunited with Danny. They kept her in a cell for a month. No one turned themselves in. She must have had a plan, a scheme. They interrogated her, deprived her of sleep. But Sarah never cracked, just kept whispering her brother's name. The picture I'd drawn for Danny, the one with the boy escaping through the brick wall, sat on her desk. For me, the picture was about escaping Brightside. For Sarah, it was about breaking in. Sarah was 20 when their parents had died. Danny was away at a special needs school. She took him in, cared for him, made sure he wore clean shirts, combed his hair, fell asleep in bed and not in the chair watching cartoons. All morning, Sarah and I hadn't shared a single word. She was already working the phones when I'd come in. She wanted to make a good first impression. After what she'd been through to get here, I didn't blame her. Finally, on our break, Sarah caught me staring at the drawing. She tucked a long strand of brown hair behind her ear. Her nose had this cute little bump, like she'd broken it as a kid. She pointed at the drawing and said, "It's really good." "Oh, I'm Sarah." "Yeah, Danny told me you were coming. Showed me a picture. I've never seen him so excited." "Yeah. Look, I wanted to thank you. For taking care of him." "It's not a big deal. I didn't do anything." "Yes, you did." I suddenly felt uncomfortable. People's thoughts about me were rarely this nice. Sarah said, "Danny wants to go to the diner tonight. He'd like you to come if you're not busy." "Sure." Sarah and I each had sandwiches. Danny ordered pancakes with a whipped cream smile. He got some on his face, and Sarah wiped it off while Danny talked about us fishing. "You need to get those worms out of our apartment," Sarah said. "It's gross." Danny's special hat shook back and forth. "But we need them." My thoughts slipped out, how there weren't any fish in the pond. Danny dropped his fork. "I'm sorry," I said. He picked up the fork and started thumbing it. You lied?" "Danny, cut it out," Sarah said. "He was being nice." He lowered his head so all I could see was Danny in bright red letters. He was pissed when he said, "But you lied!" "I know, but I still like going with you." I thought about my apartment, my dad's first gift. Danny raised his head, his eyes big and shiny. After we paid the tab, we went back to my place and I dug around in the closet. Danny was hopping around and Sarah told him to stop it, that he was shaking the floor. He probably already heard my thoughts, but I still said, "All right, close your eyes." Danny squeezed his lids so tight I thought he might squish his eyeballs. I put Billy Bass into his open palms. Danny smiled. I pushed the button and it still had a little juice. Billy turned his head and sang. Danny's laughter filled the room until the batteries died. Hold on, there are extras. I pulled out the D-cells from the closet. Only they didn't fit. It was strange. Danny said, "It's okay." He opened his backpack, pulled out 2 C batteries. They popped right in, and Billy came back to life. I couldn't believe my father had given me the wrong size. It said C right on the box. I set the unusable batteries on the counter. They felt strange. A little light. Sarah was annoyed she was going to have to hear this damn song every night. "Okay, Danny, I think that's enough." Danny started hopping again, but this time it wasn't out of joy. Sarah told him to put the fish down and hurry to the bathroom. Danny had to hit the button one last time before handing it to Sarah and scurrying out of the room. Sarah was looking at Billy Bass. I said, "Sorry." She said it was okay and cracked a smile. "He loves it." We stood there awkwardly, neither of us really knowing what to say. She was tired, thinking of her bed. I saw how beautiful she looked, even that little bump on her nose. She turned, embarrassed. I was picturing her lips on mine, and she didn't feel the same way. I was destroying her opinion of me, and for the first time, I realized how hard it was for women in Brightside, having to hear all the nasty thoughts men carried. Danny came bounding back in, breaking the tension. "I think you should get a dog, Joe." I tried saying I wasn't a pet person. Lily's breath on my feet, a puff on my arm. Fucking cowards. Sarah felt awful for hearing my thoughts. "We should probably go. It's getting late." "Yeah, I'll see you both tomorrow," I said. Danny collected his things and they walked out, leaving me alone with my thoughts of my dog and those fuckers firing into her whimpering body. I was 10 years old in my mom's new car, holding my yellow lab. Sunny wasn't a puppy anymore, but just barely. I'd had her for 6 months, and she wouldn't leave my side. For the last week, I hadn't left hers. I had one hand holding her tiny head to keep it from quivering. The other picked all the yellow hairs off the leather. No need to give my mom another reason to freak out. She found Sunny throwing up in her room, fur falling off in clumps. Dad had carried her to the car. I was in the back seat, leaning into the corner furthest from Mom, the safest spot. Mom pulled over to the curb. "Okay, you two, get out. Go do whatever you have to do." Dad was in the seat right in front of me, his head 3 feet away. When he said Mom's name, he stretched it out, let her know it wasn't right for her to talk like that. Mom pulled down the sun visor, checked her fire-red hair in the lighted mirror, poofed up the sides. "What? I didn't say anything." She hadn't, but she was thinking she hoped they'd put Sunny to sleep. Dad opened the passenger door, put one foot on the sidewalk. "Are you going to park? We might be a while." "And I'll be here," Mom said. Dad got out and opened the back door, helped with Sunny. She was shaking real bad in Dad's hands, so he gave her back to me once we got on the sidewalk. I held her against my belly and cradled her in both arms. She looked up with eyes that had lost all their shine. The sliding doors opened and a blast of cold air blew down from the vent. Sunny shuddered real hard, needed to be held tighter, have a hand on her bony back to keep her warm. There were 2 people at the counter, and nearly every seat in the waiting room had someone in it, a dog or a cat by their feet. Most of the animals didn't look sick, not like Sunny. Dad got in line, looked down and saw me shaking. "Why don't you have a seat, Joe? There's one right there." Sunny liked it better sitting down. I gave her a quick peck on her head when no one was looking. She didn't react. just closed her eyes. I put my finger in front of her nose and couldn't feel a thing. Finally, a small puff. Then, keeping her eyes closed, Sunny stuck out her tongue, licked me once to say she was still there. The girl with the braces smiled at Dad. "I'll let the doctor know. Go ahead and have a seat." Before Dad even got to me, Dr. Gentry stuck his fat face out of the back and waved us over. "Hank, I've been waiting for you." "Thank you for getting us in," Dad said. Everyone stared at us walking past the receptionist's desk. They'd been waiting all morning, and now they were pissed. None of them knew Dr. Gentry and Dad shared a secret. Dr. Gentry showed us into his office that was half the size of a real doctor's. He sat behind his desk, his fat finger pushing up the eyeglasses that didn't hide his beady pig eyes. He then took Sunny to the examination room and ran tests. "I need you to keep your mind calm," Dad thought. "Okay." Dr. Gentry is like us. My eyes must have looked like they were going to pop out of my head, because Dad told me to get a hold of myself. "But you said we should never seek—" "I know what I said. But we can't afford this." Mom's new car had pretty much cleaned us out. 30 minutes later, Dr. Gentry came back in with Sunny and sat at his desk. I was standing in the doorway, because even right there I could hear that creepy bastard's thoughts. I didn't think I could get closer, and then Dad lowered his voice and said, "Sit, right now." Dr. Gentry waited until I was sitting next to Dad before he said, "Sonny's not doing so good." You didn't need test results to figure that out. She could barely move. All matter of fact, Dr. Gentry said, "If she doesn't have help, she'll die." I nodded again and again and again. It was the only way for me not to cry, not to yell "shut up." Dr. Gentry twisted the old ruby ring he wore on the finger next to his shiny wedding one. "The treatment and operation she needs costs a lot. You owe me," Dad thought. Dr. Gentry kept twisting that ruby ring, never the wedding band. "Your dad's a good man." He looked right at Dad. "But what I owe you is far less than this." Sonny shuddered. Almost made me start crying. Dad reached over and put his hand on Sonny's head. He told me everything would be all right, and then kept thinking that, like maybe if he thought it enough times, it would make it true. "I'll work here after school," I blurted out. Dr. Gentry's face twisted a smile. He's got it too? Dad's thoughts told me to shut up. Gentry snapped his fingers and pointed at his big puffy face. "Up here," he said to me. "I want you to listen, because this means you won't be able to play football or basketball after school. You won't be able to be on any teams." That was fine. Sports were no big deal. It just meant that there'd be less coaches, refs, and fathers for Mom to meet. Dad kept patting Sonny's head, his wedding ring dull as ever. "Joe, you don't have... I want to." Dr. Gentry cleared his throat, this awful hacking. So let's say I'll take care of your dog as best I can, and in exchange, you work here every day after school, plus Saturdays. I said okay, but Dr. Gentry held up his pointer finger and took a drink from his cup. Sonny's heartbeat was weak. One every other second. This was just wasting time. Gentry wiped his mouth with the back of his hand and said, "For 2 months. He dragged out the next word. "And whatever your dad has on him, to help cover costs. Dad swallowed hard. But Dr. Gentry didn't see, because his eyes were glued to Dad's hands pulling out his wallet, digging out all the bills inside. The hands that would hand over everything he had. Dad said, "Hold on a sec." Dad held out the bills. To me, not Gentry. "It's your choice." It would have been nice to yell, "Put the money back! We don't need this fat bastard and his goddamn rings!" But Dr. Gentry was needed. Sonny's chest barely rose with each shallow breath. "Give it to him," I said. "Please." Dad pushed the bills over. "This was for the art class you wanted. I'd been saving up for your birthday. It was a lot of money. Too much. Take it, Joe. Tell your mom I lost my wallet." Dr. Gentry held out his hand and pretended to look sad. I gave it to him and said, "Class is stupid anyway." "It's not polite to lie," Dr. Gentry said. He stuffed the money in his pockets and reached for Sonny with those fat fingers. I gave Sonny one last squeeze, a kiss on her head before she went in his hands. Those fingers, I hoped, were full of miracles. Gentry headed for the door. "Let me get this guy taken care of, and I'll see you at 3 o'clock Monday." A real doctor would know Sonny wasn't a guy, but nothing was said on the way out. All 5 operating tables right there, so hard not to look at. It was easier to stare straight ahead, follow Dad past the receptionist counter, through the front door. Sonny was going to be okay, and that was all that mattered. Dad stepped to the edge of the sidewalk, looked up and down the street. Mom's car nowhere in sight. He came back and knelt close. "I'm proud of you, dealing with this so well." Dad's thoughts let out his little secret. Dr. Gentry had slept with Mom. I nodded, but I couldn't speak. I pictured Dr. Gentry kissing Mom. Dad's face got hard, the way it did when he had something serious to say. "Don't think about that." He took my hand. "Look, sometimes the things we love will die. Sometimes they won't. But it's always important to fight. Life's worth fighting for. Don't give up. Sonny's not going to. You've given her a chance. I'm proud of you." I said thanks, but I still couldn't look him in the eyes. "And for the money." Dad got up and brushed off his knee. "I'm sorry about the class." I looked in the parking lot. "You think Mom will be back?" "Probably. But what do you say we start walking?" I said fine, but with an attitude. "I know you don't like him," Dad said. "I don't either. But Sonny's in good hands." Dad had a point, but it didn't make anything any better. It didn't make it any easier to follow him. Not sure how he could hold his shoulders back, head high, as if there was nothing to be embarrassed about. Like there wasn't a care in the world. Day 65, I was at work talking to a guy in New Mexico about a condo in Vail. Told him he could ski right to his front door. "Yeah, I don't know," he said. "You have to just picture it. Fresh powder, a warm fire." I was drawing a picture of Sonny. Only had the eyes, those sad eyes as we left there with Dr. Gentry. "And you'll never beat the price. You even qualify for, I'll have to call you back. I have to go. Okay, well, let me give you the best number to reach. He'd already hung up. I set down my pencil, stared at Sonny's eyes that took up half the page. No mouth, no nose, no face. Just those eyes. The irises were so brown I colored them black. Red squiggles stretched across all the white. The eyes were terrified. The eyebrows angled up. Because she just wanted me to stay. Sarah said, "Can I see?" I banged my knee on the desk. I had no idea Sarah was at hers. "When'd you get in?" Sarah took off her black pea coat and put it on the back of her chair. "Just a few minutes ago. I said hi." Sarah had on a silver turtleneck, sleeveless. I'd never seen her arms. The scars crisscrossing her flesh. Permanent reminders of how she used to deal with her gift. She nodded at my notepad. "Anything good?" I flipped to a fresh page and said, "Nah, just scribbles." Sarah put on her headset and turned to her screen. "How are the calls?" There was no point in lying, but that didn't stop me. "Good." "It'll turn around. You have to just stick with it." Sarah and her optimism. It's what got her here. The belief that things would get better. She'd eventually be reunited with her brother. I had a good time with you and Danny," I said. Sarah was on another call. I looked down at the desk, wondering why I had to be such a creep, picturing her lips on mine. Sarah spun in her chair, mouthed, "Me too." It made me smile. Sarah spun back, telling a woman how there were only 3 units left. I started to pick up the phone, but one more hang up, one more stop calling, and I was going to lose it. Carlos's door was closed. I picked up the pencil, not sure what I'd draw. Something I could share, not be ashamed of. Like Sonny. My hand got moving, etched the outline of Sarah's desk. She was looking at her screen, a perfect model with her hair pulled back, her gentle face no longer hidden. I did her hair quick, a bundled brown ponytail. Her eye was 6 o'clock sky blue, her nose with that small bump. I shaded her lips the lightest red, even though I'd never seen her with anything on them. 2 soft lines for her chin, the side with a pencil to color the turtleneck. Her shoulders and arms were next. I hesitated, not sure what to do. Her scars were a dull pink under the fluorescent, none looking newer than a decade. I thought of leaving them off because that part of her life was behind her. But that seemed dishonest, fake, too much like a half-truth. It'd be like drawing Mom holding Dad's hand. I carefully nicked a few lines on Sarah's arm, made it so they were barely there. The picture wasn't complete, so I filled in some shadows, added the tinge of red to her cheeks. I had to make her smile a bit bigger too, like the moment she saw Danny after processing. I took my time tearing it out of the pad, folding it in half. I felt like a first grader on Valentine's when I got up and handed it to her. Sorry. I quickly walked back to my desk. Sarah tried to keep the woman on the line but lost her. She took the paper, opened it up, and didn't say a word. She couldn't pretend it wasn't her with all the tiny scars. Sarah sounded so young when she said, "I can put on my coat if it bothers you too much." "Oh, God, no. No, please. I'm sorry. You look great. I didn't..." She leaned back in her chair, but we were still in range. No reason to lie. "Some people prefer I cover up. I don't blame them." "Sarah, they're idiots. If they don't like the way you look, they're blind. You're beautiful." She kept looking at her arms. "Oh, yes, gorgeous." "Your scars just show you survived. I took my time looking at her, letting her know everything I said was true. They show you've been through some bad shit. That wasn't what I meant to say. I wanted to make her feel good, to let her know I loved that she was showing them to me. She must have heard me, because Sarah's cheeks got a bit more colorful. Thanks. I mean it. I'm just telling you. I don't know, it was just a drawing. And I like it. Sarah taped it to the wall where we could both see it. You don't have to put it up. Sarah smiled and swiveled toward me. It's mine, right? I said it was. Heard Sarah thinking maybe I was a nice guy. Then she hoped I wasn't going to start thinking. It was too late. My pad turned back to Sunny. 5 days of injections hadn't made a difference, so Dr. Gentry started her on an IV, strapping Sunny down so she didn't pull it out. She wanted to fight, to run. She wanted to go hiking. She wanted to pull my dirty socks out of the hamper and play tug of war until they were reduced to rags. She wanted to wait until Mom turned off the lights and locked the door so she could jump on my bed and snuggle into the warm spot beneath my arm, little snores all night long. Demarius, this huge black telepath who worked security for the building, was suddenly standing beside my desk. His wraparound sunglasses and crisp uniform said he had power. But this was Brightside. No one had any control over anything. Damn, Joe, Demarius said. You cool? I had no idea how long he'd been standing there, or what he'd heard. Lying was pointless, so I just shrugged. Demarius took a step back and sat down on the edge of Sarah's desk like he was planning to have a deep conversation. You need someone to talk to? I knew he meant Sharon, but felt like testing him. I turned my pad so he could see the drawing. Let's talk about how I wouldn't let her die. You need to clear your head, homie. Demarius shook his head and left the room. He didn't want to hear how Dr. Gentry had to operate on my birthday. Both of Dr. Gentry's receptionists looked down, saw who it was, and looked away. Mary Ann, the one with braces, picked up the phone that hadn't rung. Jessica, the freckled redhead, got up, went into the back. I hoped they were being nice, trying not to stare at my sweat circles. I'd jogged all the way from school to have an extra 5 minutes with Sunny, to tell her she'd be okay. Someone thought they were being funny with the time cards. The pink one Dr. Gentry made special for me was on the top slot, way out of reach. But that was nothing next to Dr. Gentry. He'd pass me in the waiting room and let his thoughts fill my head. Images of Mom's sweaty body beneath him. He knew I wanted to punch him. He knew every violent thought flowing through my mind. He'd just smile, because there was nothing I could do. He held Sunny's life in his hands. I just had to grit my teeth and take it. Pamela was at the end of the hall looking like a Q-tip with her rail-thin body and puffy blonde perm. Even if she wasn't busy moving stuff around in the cupboard, she wasn't the person to ask for help. Pamela was one of those people that smiled real big all the time. The kind of smile people give when they're really just holding back a scream. After a few minutes, the exam room's door swung open. Nancy headed down the hall looking at her clipboard. Nancy was the only one who could weigh with the big dogs. She knew the others laughed behind her back because she looked like a man, but that didn't stop her from always smiling. Real ones, nothing like Pamela's. I was so glad to see her. I wanted her to be the one to give me the good news about Sunny, that she was all better, like a miracle. Nancy would have loved to say that. She didn't think I was just a stupid kid who got in the way. She didn't think Sunny wasn't important. She thought Sunny would be okay. I waved Nancy down and pointed at the pink card. Can you help me? She tried to smile, but it crumpled. It took her a minute to start talking. Then all she said was follow her. She walked past all the tables, the place quieter than ever. Everyone's eyes trained on their patient or tool, or each other. Nancy turned around in front of the door to the last operating room. She put both arms around me and pulled me close. She didn't say a word. It was hard to breathe with my mouth smushed against her chest, but Nancy kept hugging. She wanted to take the pain away. She knew it wasn't fair. Nancy couldn't say she was sorry, but she was. Her eyes wet when she stood and walked away. Everything got super quiet. The occasional beep and buzz too loud. The door was wood with a big window too high to look through. The door pushed in, squealed the whole way back. Everything was dark. Then I flipped on the switch, and it was way too bright. Sunny curled up on the table like she did in that space below my arm. The place that'd be empty forever. I lowered the lights, so they were just barely on. I stepped onto the table. Sunny smelled like she did that first day I got her. Her fur was so soft except for the parts they'd shaved off. They'd given her a bath and closed her eyes. The eyes that had showed so much love no matter what. This was the last time to see Sunny. Last time to pick her up, hug her tight, let her know she'd be missed every day. My tears fell on Sunny's face, bounced off the bright collar that never got a chance to get old. From the other room, Nancy said, "He's in here, Mr. Nolan." The door opened, then closed. Dad didn't get off work before 5, but he was stepping up right behind me. "I'm sorry, Joe," he said. "I really am." Crying made it too hard to talk. There were no words to say. Everything hurt, and it always would. Nothing would ever make that better. Dad put his hands on my shoulders to keep them from shrugging up and down. In a way he hadn't said it before. Dad said, "Control it, Joe." I was trying to, but Dr. Gentry had killed Sunny. I knew it. "I know this hurts. It hurts me too," Dad said. He walked around so I could see the sadness behind his glasses. "But it'll pass, and you'll get over it. Not this. Not Sunny. Stop shaking your head and listen to me." He held my chin because I didn't. "You're feeling a lot of things right now, but you need to relax." He bent down, got eye to eye. "You're sad, scared, alone, pissed off, at God, at Dr. Gentry, your mom, me." I couldn't stop sobbing. Sunny was dead. "Look at her." Dad raised his voice to cover my crying, not because he was mad. Understanding what you're feeling is the first step, but naming it is not enough. Then you've got to think about it, rationalize it, use logic. Logic said Sunny was dead, always would be, just a piece of meat. "Stop it, Joe." Dad went back to holding my shoulders. "You're feeling an emotion that you're in control of. It's your brain. If you want to be happy, you can choose to be happy." Dad's brown eyes were getting shiny behind his glasses. "If you decide to be angry, that's how you'll be. It works in degrees, and you won't always get rid of what you're feeling. Lots of times it's just postponing it, but that's all right." Dad put his hand on Sunny's head, the other on my hand. There'll be plenty of times where you can think about Sunny and miss her. Way too many times. Then you can cry all you want. Dad checked over his shoulder and turned back, his face all hard. But don't ever do it in front of that prick. Dad stood and pointed at the table. The table was cold, too cold to put Sunny on. The whole room was cold and smelled funny. She couldn't just lie there by herself. Dad said my name real slow. Knock it off and put her down. Sunny went down all relaxed, legs going out each way. Her nose was cold, not wet. No more snores. One more kiss, and that's it. It's better that way, Dad said. He knew it was true, thinking of holding his first dog, Brutus, while the shivering pooch threw up its insides trying to get rid of the poison. I gave Sunny one final kiss on the top of her head and turned my back on her. Dad took off his glasses just long enough to wipe his eyes. I'm proud of you. That's what it means to be a man. It's easier to be controlled by sadness and fear, hatred and jealousy, and all of that other bullshit than it is to control them. The man talking right then wasn't the same man that came home after work every day. This one was someone to look up to. There were no more goodbyes. We just went right through the door, into the main room, right past Donnie, who thought it was pretty queer for me to be holding hands with my dad, past Felicia, who said she was sorry, thought, poor kid, that dog never had a chance. At the counter, Jessica said sorry too, like it could make it all better. And maybe it did a little, because she really meant it. Her bottom lip all shaking because Sunny looked like her princess. I tried to say thanks, but it came out all mumbled. Jessica understood. She said to take care. Then, Dr. Gentry came out of the consultation room. He said he was sorry, but didn't sound it. Go ahead and take tomorrow off too. Instead of running out of the front door like my after-work dad. Dad stood right there and put his hand on my shoulder. Joe won't be finishing up. Gentry went red, used his I'm not mad voice. It'll be good for your boy to learn the value of hard work and fulfilling promises. He already knows both of those. You have any idea how much that dog cost us? Well, it wasn't enough, so we're leaving. Dad turned for the door. And if you have a problem with that, why don't you take it up with my wife? I'm sure you'll be talking to her. Dr. Gentry thought of Mom bent over his desk. I don't think Dr. Gentry even saw my dad's fist before it sent him crashing to the floor. We left. The door swooshed shut. Dad's rusty red Tercel parked on the curb. Dad opened the passenger door for me. And just so we're clear, I said try to control your emotions. I didn't say it always works.
Yes, we are back. So yeah, that was chapter 8 of Brightside. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully it wasn't too sad. Hopefully I didn't ruin the part about Sunny dying. My smart remark earlier. But yeah, that was definitely a sad scene. Made me realize, I think that's where I learned about death, was through animals. I didn't have anyone really close to me die until I was, like, my grandparents died when I think I was a teenager or a little bit older. So I wasn't around a lot of death, but I did see animals die. And I think that's where, it's where it started for me. Maybe my obsession with it, why I fucking write about it all the time. But for Joe, it was big. So that's something that he's really focusing on. It's having his other dog shot really brings that back about his first dog dying. And then also knowing how his mom and dad both reacted to it definitely affected him as well. Um, there were a couple cool things that I got from today that are going to help me with the sequel. But I'm not sharing them with you because don't want to give away stuff. Don't want you yelling at me for that shit. But it was good for me, so yay. What else was there? Oh, Dr. Gentry. How'd you feel about him? How would you feel about him if you were that little kid, man, knowing that he's knowing your mom and all that? That would not be fun. I put a note to myself while listening to this about I should really start doing drawing classes with Jake. Or that's something that I'll do for 2019. God damn it, the year's already over. But next year, maybe doing art, a lot more artwork. I used to love drawing. That's where lots of the stuff from Joe came from. Something that I used to do, never took classes for, was never that great. Just like playing around with it. So maybe that's something that I will do this year with my son. And I wrote it down, so that means it's probably maybe gonna happen. I'll decide next week, and if I make it one of my resolutions, then I will do it. I was reading a really good post on, it wasn't on New Year's resolutions, but it was pretty fucking similar. Some stoic thing about 14 different things, like each day you do a different action. One of them was stop procrastinating, but another one was learn a new whatever it is. Last year I was doing a lot of, or this past year, German and playing guitar, and I've eased off guitar, although I want to start picking it up again. Still try to do the German a little bit every day. Like, I'm terrible at it, but it's working my brain, which is the important thing. But yeah, so I think maybe those art classes aren't a bad idea. Plus, I know my son loves to draw, so it'd be something fun that we can do together, learn together. So I think that's going to be the plan. Joe's dad did have another good piece of advice that I liked, which was about, yeah, you choose whether you're going to be happy, sad, whatever it is. I've recently just seen that in action with my son, where I had a talk with him about pain, because he's starting to do jiu-jitsu, he's starting to do competitions. He's usually very quick to complain about being hurt or whatever else. And I'm not going to call him a crybaby or anything like that, but I will smack him around a little bit. Now, I'm joking. I do not hit my kids at all. I don't spank them. I'm totally against that. I've seen all the studies, so that's a whole nother subject. But no, I do not ever hit my kids. Don't spank them. Don't do any of that. But what was my fucking point now? God damn it. Bet it was super important too. I could rewind this shit and hear it, but I'm not spending that kind of time. About choosing to be happy though. So I was telling him, I was like, okay, like with pain, it's like, how do you think I can get through the tattoo session, like a 4 or 5 hour tattoo session? I was like, that's gonna hurt. He's like, oh, you just get really, really high. That's what I heard. I was like, you motherfucker, why are you listening to my podcast? No, I didn't say that to my son. My son's 5. But I said, I know it's going to hurt, so I accept that it's going to hurt, and I just breathe, and I deal with it. I was like, so if you're hurt, you can either be like really, really sad about it, and be hurt, or you can just realize, yeah, I'm going to be that level of hurt. It's going to hurt. It's eventually going to go away. And then I'll just breathe and do these other things that are going to help me deal with it. And his reaction to pain now has gotten so much better. But I think that applies. And we also obviously give him that talk about being happy over sad. And like the other day, I was kind of an asshole. I was kind of grumpy. Great first of the half of the day. Second half of the day, I realized I was like, yes. I was being fucking Mr. Grumpface. I was being not happy. Wouldn't want to be around me if I was someone else. Just look on my face or whatever else. And it was all based on my decision to act that way and react that way when I could have chosen to be happy. So the next day I apologized to the kids. I pointed that out to them. I said, hey, look, I said, Dad fucked up. I was like, I owe you guys an apology. This is how I was yesterday. And so just another reminder that, yeah, you do have that ability. Maybe there's a lot of other shit going on. Maybe it's harder for you to be happy and blah blah blah. But I think it's definitely so much on our perspective, and there could be tons of factors. I'm realizing how much of a better place I'm in emotionally just because of the hormone treatment I've been doing and all the stuff with my brain. And so I realized that, people with TBI or people with whatever disposition may be quicker to anger or harder to be happy or more depressed or more anxious and all that. So I get all that. But even when you're at those states, if you're choosing to try to be one way over the other, I think it's going to make a big difference. But again, who the fuck am I? I don't know. I'm just telling you what I wrote in the book. Oh, God damn it. Never should have started this podcast. What else? Oh, the last thing. Now for the juicy part. The cutting. Yeah, so Sarah is a cutter. She has a bunch of scars up and down her arms. That's something I had some experience with. Not this, but I was more of a designer. I don't want to call myself a cutter. I was more of an artist, more of a designer. I cut along with my tattoos, or actually, and that's just me trying to be funny about it. Like I was talking last week with alcohol. That's something I wish I hadn't done. I wasn't proud of how I used to drink and party and all that stuff. Like it was fucking stupid. It was a waste. Fucking dangerous. Terrible idea. It wasn't good for me. Wish I hadn't done it. All that stuff. Same thing goes for this with cutting though. But I don't know. I can't remember what age it started. But yeah, I would cut myself all the time. I would take razor blades. I would do whatever. I would design it myself. And it was cry for help. It was wanting to be tough. It was wanting to, I don't know. There's probably so many different reasons. But fuck, I was suicidal. I had so much self-hatred and everything else. Plus the music I listened to. Like one of the things, like I wrote Slayer on myself, just like they had on one of their albums. I had a pentagram fucking carved on my stomach. And it wasn't deep. Like it was enough to get blood, but so those things were obviously, yeah, I'd say a mix of cry for help plus wanting to be the crazy guy, tough guy, scary guy, guy that doesn't care about pain. So I kind of get where Sarah was coming from. So there's that. But yeah, I don't know. If you do know someone that's a cutter, maybe talk to them. Maybe see how they really are. But don't do it by yourself. No. That's my revelation of the day. It's like, yep, I used to take razor blades and carve on my skin. But just a little bit because I wasn't full on psychopath. I was only like trying to be. I was a imitation psychopath. Alright, yeah, guys, so I think that is it. That's all I wrote down, so that's all you're getting. I forgot the rest of the story, and you're probably tired of hearing me. I'm gonna go work on these things, taking out the trash, finish that thing up, in the cards, finish that, and my last will and testament. Then only one more, and I'm done. So hopefully when you hear from me next week, I'll be telling you all this shit's finished, and then we can really get into Brightside. Until then, I hope you guys have an incredible week, and I will see you next episode. All right, later.